Thank you, thank you. You may be seated. It's hard to top that one, so I would just tell Pastor Stan to leave us alone next time. Yeah, so here we are again, the Leafs here, and thank you for coming out tonight and allowing us the honor of teaching from your pulpit. We have many different teachings tonight on the male-female brain, and I think a lot of you are going to find it very interesting. And so a lot of people ask me why we have props. You know, we have slides and props. Well, props help the whole presentation. It reminded me of the Baptist preacher who's wanting to get a message over to his congregation, and he had 4 bottles, and in the one bottle he had alcohol, the next bottle he had cigarette smoke, in the third bottle he had chocolate, and the fourth one he had some earth from outside the church, and he put a worm in each of these bottles. So he was preaching and teaching about the word and so on, and the worms all died, the ones in the alcohol, the cigarette smoke, and the chocolate, but the worm in the good earth was just circling around. So he said, what's the point of the story? So an elderly lady piped up from the back. It seems to be that if you drink, smoke, and eat chocolate, you won't have worms. So I just want to let you know. So we showed you another green book this morning. This is the book on the male-female brain relationships. And it's not just about husband and wife. It's about father, son, mother, and daughter. First of all, you are you, and you live in a world with males and females. And I think the subject has for too many years been handled almost in a derogatory manner. So tonight we hope to share some truths. We have lots of these books. It's called Who Switched Off Your Brain? The Mystery of He Said, She Said. So I'm going to be working the slides from the back, so I'll leave it to you, sweetie.
Thank you. Evening, everyone. Okay, so this is a very interesting topic, as I believe everything is when it comes to, we love to learn about ourselves, don't we, and how we function and how our mind functions. And I don't know if you're aware, but I'm also a scientist. I still do research. I've been a scientist for 30 years. I ran a clinical practice for 25 years. I don't practice anymore. I don't have time. So I go around the world now teaching this subject, teaching on all these different topics pretty much 5 days a week. So we spend a lot of time in church, which is a privilege and an honor, and we also reach the secular world. I lecture at universities, to medical doctors, to hospitals, to students, and it's just interesting. It doesn't matter where I am or what environment I'm in, everyone's always interested in themselves. So I have a pretty good topic to talk about, because everyone wants to know about their mind and how to get it under control. And you know, everyone's experiencing similar problems across the world. We've all got minds, and we all have issues with you know, like food, as I spoke about this morning, and relationships. And these are things that we all desire to get right. So it's just so nice to be able to tell you from a scientific perspective that we can do these things. We can have decent relationships. We can eat healthy. We can get our minds under control. We can live in that we can do that command, fulfill that command which says seek after holiness, without which we won't see the Lord. And it's very, very doable. It's lovely to know that, because we do live in a world that's quite depressing, and that the world view is one of, well, if it's in your genes, you've got a disease. And you even hear people saying things like, oh, well, I've got this disease in my brain, that's why I can't have a relationship, or I can't maintain a relationship, or whatever. We also in a world view that's very, very selfish, very narcissistic, very much me, myself, and I society. You've got to meet my needs. And that's completely the opposite of what God desires and what model He's put in place. So once again, as I mentioned this morning, science is, God made everything, and science is a description of the everything. Okay, so science should be in the church, because science is like another analogy. It's God's stuff. Science should never not be in the church. Science is basically another way of understanding God. God made everything. So when scientists think that they can exclude God from the equation, God is really good, because He then reveals more science and takes us to another level. So science dies one funeral at a time. So as soon as man thinks, hey, I got it, you have to go back to the drawing board, and more fantastic science is revealed. So I love the way God does that. But it is a wonderful way of disseminating the truth of God. It's very appealing, and it's a great way of reaching the lost, because science is very, very appealing on all levels to all people. So I love to equip the body of Christ. That's one of the reasons why I also do this, is to equip you with skills when you are talking to non-believers. Science is a fantastic way of actually getting their ear. I did a TED talk last year, and if you want to have a look, you can have a look on my webpage. The TED community is a 20 million strong community of scientists, and basically people that follow science. And one of the rules that are given when you are selected to speak there is don't speak about God. So I said, well, that's not going to be possible because when I talk about science, I'm talking about God anyway. So anyway, if you want to watch a bit more about the research that I've done and some of the, over the years, you can see that on my TED Talk. You can go to my webpage, drleaf.com. And I also have a weekly TV show where I talk about different things in different seasons. And this season is about mental health. So you can get a lot of information about mental health, the truth about things like the diagnostic labels that people have been given, how they, those aren't really scientific, the truth about medications, how to actually get your mind under control. It's very practical. There's a lot of practical exercises at the end of it. Okay, so I'm not going to touch on those too much on those topics. I will wind a little bit of mental health in tonight because you can't discuss relationships without bringing in those kind of topics, but you can dig deeper in the materials that I have in my TV show. Okay, so chemical analysis of females. Let's do this first. We're going to first see a slide up that does its very, very serious slide. Okay, element name, woman, symbol, WO. Atomic weight, don't even go there. Physical properties, generally round in form, boils at nothing and may freeze at any time. Melts whenever treated properly, very bitter if not used well. Chemical properties, very active, highly unstable, possesses a strong affinity to gold and silver, platinum and precious gemstones. Violent when left alone, able to absorb great amounts of exotic food, turns slightly green when placed next to a better specimen. Usage, highly ornamental and extremely good catalyst for the dispersion of wealth, probably the most powerful income-reducing agent known. Caution, highly explosive in inexperienced hands. Okay, so that's the girls. Males, chemical analysis of males, element man, symbol XY. Atomic weight, 180 pounds plus minus 50. Physical properties, solid at room temperature, gets bent out of shape easily, fairly dense, sometimes flaky. Difficult to find a pure sample. Due to age and rust, older samples are unable to conduct electricity as well as younger samples. Chemical properties, attempts to bond with WO, which is woman, at any chance it can get. Also tends to form strong bonds with itself. Becomes explosive when mixed with KD, which is child, for prolonged periods of time. Can be neutralized by saturating with good food. Usage, none known, may possibly a good source of methane gas. Caution, in the absence of WO, this element rapidly decomposes and begins to smell. Okay, so it's always good to laugh because when you laugh, you do increase your intelligence. And that's a fact. When you laugh, you increase your intelligence as long as your laughing is one of a celebratory nature and not a mocking nature. So when you laugh in a sarcastic way or you're laughing at someone, you actually cause brain damage. But when you're laughing with someone in an enjoyable way, like we've done now, we've just increased our intelligence. Isn't God amazing? I love brain research because it just shows God's magnificence. Okay, so I love to make you laugh because not only now are you more intelligent, which means I can now talk faster and I can give you lots of science. See, I have method in my madness. Okay, I'll try and slow down, but it doesn't always work. When the Holy Spirit gets a hold of me, I just talk. Okay, so you can be on the same page. You can be on the same page, even though it feels like so much of our interaction just gets completely lost in communication. I know sometimes I experience this, I'm sure you do as well, where you look at the opposite sex, whether it is your husband or wife or a business partner or colleague or child or whatever, uncle, aunt, father, mother, brother, whatever, and it just feels like I've got up on the screen there, what she said wasn't what you heard, or what he thought wasn't what you assumed. You see, we have a really bad habit of thinking we know what someone else is thinking. Now, what we can pick up from each other is the attitude, or the kind of, which is the state of mind. So if someone is irritated or frustrated, that is conveyed. So you can't hide the attitude, but the detail we can't aren't able to read. We can't read each other's thoughts. The Bible's clear that only God and you and I know our own thoughts. So what we pick up from each other are attitudes, and that's very real. So you can't hide an attitude. So if you're in a toxic state of mind towards someone, it means that you have built that kind of toxic thought inside your head. Remember, this is the fear zone. Those are toxic thoughts. This is the love zone, and these are healthy thoughts. So when you've got a toxic thought towards someone inside of your head, it is very evident in the emotions that you express on your face. No matter how much you might be smiling sweetly, it's not going to come through your eyes, because what you have is cognitive dissonance. because what you're saying inside is, oh, please go away, don't come near me. But what you're saying, hello, how are you? Now that is cognitive dissonance, and what people will pick up is that they're smiling at you, but something's wrong. That you can feel that they don't like you. Or you may be saying to you, maybe your husband and wife, you've just had an argument or something like that, and your wife and your husband says, are you okay? And your wife says, yes, I'm fine. But meanwhile, it's no, I'm not fine, and you're in for it for the next 10 hours or something. Okay, so that's cognitive dissonance, which is not a good idea to have in your brain. It causes inflammation in your brain and sets you up for neurodegeneration. You see, we're not supposed to live in this zone, as I always teach. We're supposed to live in this zone. So even if you have been a victim, even if you have gone through a trauma, even if you have voluntarily sinned, sin is voluntary. By the way, we choose to step into the sin zone. So in your relationships, if you have sinned in your communication, we have to realize that this is why Jesus died on the cross and rose again. We can acknowledge what we did wrong. We can confess our sin. He's righteous and just to cleanse us and forgive us from all unrighteousness. And guess what we can also do? We can celebrate the sin. Now that sounds wrong, doesn't it? But it isn't. We can celebrate the sin because when you are aware of your toxic relational issue, which is a sin or something going wrong in your thought life towards another person, you can celebrate that because why? You become aware of the problem. And as soon as you are aware, it has moved from the dark into the light. And science shows us that the minute you're aware of something, I mentioned this morning, I've taught this to you before, this memory becomes very malleable, which means it becomes changeable, it becomes weakened. So this is an incredible design that God has given us in the human brain, that when we're aware of something, we can actually change it. And if you choose to change it, it's weak already, so it's actually quite easy to change it, but you have to choose to do that, and you have to get in the arms of the Holy Spirit, and you have to work with the Holy Spirit to change that. But you can also choose to not change that. You can choose to stay the victim. You can choose to think, well, I'm right and he's wrong, or I'm right and she's wrong, or whatever the case may be, and then that toxic issue will go back even stronger than before into your non-conscious mind. And anything in this zone that you keep in that form is causing brain damage. 75 to 98% of illnesses come from our thought life. That's huge. Even the cancers, even the cardiovascular issues, literally everything that goes wrong in our body is coming from the majority. 75 to 98% come from what we're doing with our thought life. So we cannot not have the thought life involved in our relationships, because everything about you is what you are thinking. You are building your belief systems. You are working on the initial design that God has designed you unique in His uniquely, fearfully and wonderfully made. I call it the perfectly you. And the way that you are designed, you are basically, as life goes on, you are choosing and building on that design that God has given you. So if you wire this in, you're wiring toxicity in. If you're wiring this in, you're wiring good stuff in. And this is why renewing of the mind is vital in your own life and in your relationships. And if you want a relationship that's going to work, you're going to have to constantly renew your mind. The Bible in Romans 12:2 doesn't say renew your mind when you feel like it. It doesn't say renew your mind now and then. It says renewing of your mind. So this means our renewing of our mind in relationships is also vitally important. So we can follow much advice, and the Bible is obviously primary advice, and science is God's stuff. So God adds layers to His wisdom by giving us things like science, and science gives us tremendous insight into how we are different and how to understand and celebrate these differences. So when we see something wrong in our life, we celebrate because we can deal with it. And when we see something wrong in our relationships, we can celebrate because we can change it. Because that's not your destiny. This is not your destiny. This is your destiny. So this is not who you are. This is who you have become. So unbecome that. So it doesn't matter what age stage you are in a relationship or how you get on with others, you can always change it. Okay, so make some good, decent advice when we use science to adding to that. Okay, so men and women are from Mars. Men are from Mars, women are from Venus. There's a new one out. Men are from Mars, women are from Visa. Okay, these are book titles, and they're typical book titles. These are best-selling book titles. It's a very hot topic to talk about male-female brain, but most of these topics don't handle it from a very nice perspective. There's some interesting things in there, but it's almost like, there's truths in those statements, those stereotypes that you see up there. I'm sure you can identify. But the thing is that very often it's handled, as Mac already mentioned, that it's handled in an almost negative way. It's almost like, well, oh, you know what, I can't live with you, I can't live without you. Meanwhile, God would never have created created males and females if he didn't think we could get on? We have to go back to God, okay? What did he do? God is God, and whatever he designed is good. So he said it's not good that man be alone, and he made woman, and that obviously means that we're supposed to be able to get on. So science shows us that the more we try and understand the opposite sex, the more intelligent we become, and the more we increase our brain health, which means our body health, and the more we increase our longevity. So I love that. So the more you try and get on with others, the more you attempt that, the more you get over yourself, the happier you will be, and the happier your relationships will be. So step out of the worldview which says it's all about you, you mustn't have pain, you mustn't have suffering, you just got to numb it all. The Bible says bring all thoughts into captivity, not drug all thoughts into captivity. You're not going to solve relational issues by medicating. You are going to solve relational issues by growing up and dealing with them. Okay, so let's understand a little bit more about how to do that. I talk about the 3 C's, and all the things I'm teaching you tonight is in this book that Mac has been, well, I'm not teaching you this whole book, we'll be here forever, but basically the book that Mac held up. I'm also referring to elements in this book, Switch on Your Brain. This is a vital tool in relationships. When I run a relationship seminar, I teach from all of these books. This is the Perfectly You book, The Gift in You, which teaches you how to understand yourself. You see, it's very important that we understand ourselves, because when we understand ourselves and we understand who we are in Christ, we are going to have self-confidence and humility. Let me say that again. When you understand who you are in Christ, when you understand your perfectly you wired for love design in this zone, you will have good self-esteem, because you will recognize that God took the time to design an amazing person, which is you. And also you will have humility, because you will realize how honored we are to be made in his image. And so we will, with that mindset of humility and self-esteem, we can go into relationships very, very positively. The world tells us you're a broken machine, you're a robot, you're a disease, you got this gene wrong and that gene wrong, and basically you can't fix anything, just live with it. And that is very depressing and makes you feel stuck and lost in a bad place. And it's also almost like it's irreconcilable, the differences, and that is not the case. Okay, so also, we can't control the events and circumstances of our lives. Because we can't control what other people do with their choices. But what we can control, ladies and gentlemen, is our reactions to events and circumstances. So you can control your reactions within relationships. Okay, and this, once again, we're not just talking about marriage now. We are talking about whether you like it or not. You are you in a world of the opposite sex. So we do need to understand the opposite sex. So I talk about the 3 C's, and these are that we are designed to complete each other and not compete with each other. So the world tells us we must compete. But we don't have to compete. Compete, why? Because when you understand who you are in your perfectly you zone, when you understand what it means to be made in God's image, you will recognize that you're not a number, like the IQ movement said. You are not a category, like the personality profile movement says, but you will actually be, you'll recognize, which is the third movement, which I call the geodesic movement, which recognizes the uniqueness and the individuality and the I factor, which I spoke a little bit about this morning. When you recognize that you're an absolute unique individual, and you'll recognize there's something you can do that no one else can do, you won't have envy or jealousy or bitterness or wanting to be like someone else, because there is no one like you. So you're amazing, so there's no competition for you. You see, you're not type A, you're not type B, you're not type C. People tell me, oh, I'm type A and he's type B, and that's why we don't get on. Nonsense. You are type U. And type U can get on with anyone if you choose to use your mind the way God teaches you to use your mind. We've got to stop blaming everyone else for and finding excuses for our own bad behavior. I didn't put this in my slideshow, but I actually should have. Do you remember that song, Another One Bites the Dust? Do you remember that one? Who remembers that song? Okay, by Queen. Okay, so that is exactly what we're going to do with this side of the toxic zone in our lives. We're going to make sure another one bites the dust in our relationship, another toxic issue, another toxic thing in our lives. Let's let them bite the dust. Okay, let's get rid of these, and let's turn around and let the world see the love pouring out of us. You see, when you operate in your humble, beautiful self-esteem, perfectly you will shine a light that will attract people, and people will see a difference in you, and you will exude the love of Christ through you, which will pour all over people. And when you do that, you change your cellular environment. In other words, you change the blood biochemistry in your brain and around every single one of your cells. You literally change that by your decision to operate in this zone, and that pours out of you because your attitude is one of love and pours all over others. So you bathe each other in love when you operate in that zone. And love is healing. Love changes things. Love is perfection. Love is it, and it comes from the source, the Father of lights, which is God. We need to tune in to this zone. Okay, so we are designed to complete and not compete. So God made male and female in his image, and he made each of us unique. So each of us has got something, can do something that no one else can do. So first and foremost, you are unique. Then secondly, you're male or female. So you've got this beautiful character, and each of us completely as a standalone can do something that no one else can do. So put us all together, we have incredible, beautiful power. See, completion is the result of understanding each other and recognizing the beauty of difference, not seeing difference as a value judgment, but seeing it as something beautiful. Okay, so we are compatible. We are designed to fit together. We are designed to work together. We can get on. God designed us for relationship. There's many studies showing that we are not designed for isolation. Isolation causes brain damage. It causes illness in our body. We are designed primarily for our first relationship is with God. That is the highest part of spirit man. The desire for communion. It is in every single human that God created. He created the desire and the hunger for him, and then gave us free will to choose to follow that or not. So if people are not following God, they are then following something in the world. I mentioned that this morning. We are designed to be addicted to God. So if we're not following God, we are following something in the world. And if we don't operate in our God addiction, it impacts our relationships. See, we've got to operate in our God addiction to have a healthy relationship. Okay, so we are compatible. We are complementary, which means we are better together than we are alone, which goes to what I've just been saying about how we are not designed for isolation. They have a term in quantum physics, and don't pass out, you totally are able to understand this, okay? There's a term in quantum physics called entanglement, and it explains the nature of the relationship between particles on a subatomic level. What's that got to do with you and I? Well, God made these subatomic particles. He designed all this stuff, and he's revealing his glory, as I keep saying, through science. But what this entanglement shows is that the primary law of quantum physics is entanglement, and entanglement means relationship. So right down to the physical particles that our bodies and brains are made of, right down to the dust of the earth, there is, when particles are in relationship, they are operating like they should. And if they're in relationship, you can separate them by thousands of miles, and because they're in relationship, if one spins this way, one particle spins this way, another one will spin that way. The other one, the one it's in relationship with, will spin that way as well. There's a connection. There's an entanglement. Ephesians 4:16 explains this very well. Every part of the body is designed to do perfect work, and when its own unique work, and when all the parts of the body are working together, then the body operates in love and harmony. You see, compatibility is love and harmony. So that applies to the body of Christ. So why we fight within the church and between churches and between different denominations is insane, because we are designed to be complementary, and if we all work together, we will enhance as opposed to break down. So can you see there's maturity that needs to come into the church? I spoke about it with food this morning, and I'm speaking about it with relationships as well. We need to grow up with our relationships as well. We need to stop pointing fingers, judging others, talking about others, comparing ourselves, saying they this and they that. We need to find the common ground. We need to operate from a love perspective. And when you go into a relationship with a love perspective, you will find the common ground. Okay, so we are designed to complete, not compete, compatible and complementary, which means we contribute to and improve each other. We are better together, and that goes for male and female. Let's have a quick look at some scriptures. We are made in his image, which is reflected in science all over the place. I even spoke about that this morning, how being made in the Wired for Love design is reflected in food and in nature. So Genesis, it's actually 127, sorry, in his image. So first and foremost, we are made uniquely in his image. That should be Genesis 1:27. Okay, so first and foremost, God says in the Bible, you are made in his image, and then he says male and female. So first of all, he made you and I. in our uniqueness. So uniqueness is the dominant thing, the standalone uniqueness. Then he made you either male or female. It doesn't say that he made any confusion or any its. He made XX and XY. Okay? So things like homosexuality is always the tough question, and the church is very challenged at the moment to talk about it, and I talk about it because it's not such a tough question. God made us male and female, so when we're confused, we basically step in this zone and we think that there's a third gender. It's no third gender. We can see in science there is only XX or XY, but we don't judge because that doesn't help people when they're in a state of confusion. What we do is operate in love. We've got to stop blaming people for choices that they've made, and we've got to start helping people, because when we immerse someone in love, listen to what I'm saying, when you immerse someone in love, you give them the strength and the courage to see the choices that they made that were wrong and to overcome the potential traumas, because whenever we get into this zone, we either gotcha voluntarily, or when there's so much confusion that comes around the whole concept of homosexuality, when you get into this zone, the confusion that comes here generally also comes from some sort of trauma. Now, sin is voluntary, but trauma is involuntary. No one asks to be traumatized, and trauma, if it's not dealt with, will manifest in various levels of confusion in a person's life. And homosexuality is a choice, and it is one of those confusions. And as you feed into a confusion, like we learned this morning about when you constantly listen to those food adverts and you constantly eat in a toxic way, you're basically wiring those patterns in your brain. So whatever choice you make will wire patterns in your brain. So you literally wire it in, but it's not your original biology. Okay? It's not your original biology. It feels real because you get so used to things. Habits that you've done for years and years and years and ways of operating feel so real because you're so used to them. They've been basically been automatized, which is the scientific word for a habit that has been very stabilized that you're operating from. So when we make these choices and we keep feeding these choices by repeating the acts and eating the wrong food and doing the same thing and thinking the same thoughts, whatever we think about the most will grow. So it may feel like it's part of you, and also your cells are renewing all the time. Every time you wake up in the morning, you've got millions of new cells, and your cells are constantly changing according to your mind because your brain is neuroplastic. So our mind decisions are changing our biology, and our biology is manifesting in what we look like. And this is why we physically start looking and sounding different when we start going down a toxic route. Okay, so that's just a little touch there. God was not confused. He made male and female. And it's not good that man be alone. And Jesus' words on the male and female in Matthew 19:25 about us being equal. And then in Corinthians, Paul talks about male and female being equal as well. In other words, we are male and female. And the reason I throw in the word equal is because for years there's also been the gender isms. And the whole thing of males and female competition and who's more intelligent. And generally there's been a lot of bad treatment of women through the ages, and then you get the feminist movements, and I track it all in my book, the basic history of what's going on. At one stage you weren't even allowed to say that there were males and females, and not that long ago they were doing research experiments on babies that were born a female, and then they were bringing them up as a male and totally confusing these kids, and these kids saying that what they were trying to say was that maleness and femaleness was a social, cultural thing. It wasn't a genetically a design thing. So you can imagine there was a whole group of babies that came through these experiments, and also it impacted general life, and that caused a lot of confusion. Okay, so I'm not going to go into the medical things, but just one thing very quickly is sometimes people are born with both genitalia or with genitalia that you can't actually tell whether it's a male or a female, and so what the parents are often given the choice of, okay, well, we can now make this child a male or a female, and that's a choice that shouldn't be made on emotions. It's a choice that should be made on genetic typing. You should actually, because you'll be able to tell through genetic testing if it's an XX or an XY. Okay, that's the genetic. So then we won't have that confusion, because if that parent, for example, they were desperate for a boy, and this child was born with both genitalia, which happens, or an extra X chromosome, there's various things that can go wrong in the womb, you can still test and you will still find out that they are a male or a female, and that's what you should do to make the decision. It should not be made on emotional choices. Okay, makes sense? So let's moving on a little bit. Human qualities should also not be seen as male or female. There's a lot of, we all have emotions, okay? We all think of David and think of Rahab. These were two, David, if you had to look at some of David's Psalms, you would think he's being female. That's if you looked in terms of the worldview, the current worldview. And if you looked at Rahab, the way she was so strategic, people would say that's her maleness coming out. So I don't think it's correct, and it's not scientifically correct to categorize emotions into maleness and femaleness, because we all have emotions. Here's the better way of understanding it. We all have emotions, but we express our emotions differently. So all these things, love, passion, empathy, compassion, development, discipline, systematic analysis, strategy, sympathy, kindness, communication, whatever, these take shape through your uniqueness plus your maleness or your femaleness. So we're all going to have all these emotions, but because you are you and because you are male or female, then you have your unique way of doing compassion, your unique flavor of empathy, your unique flavor of whatever emotion, strategy, analysis. Do you understand what I'm saying? So instead of splitting the things apart, let's look at all the emotions that God has given us to experience and see that it is different. There are differences. If God made male and female, there are differences in terms of how we use those emotions, but we can't say that empathy is a female emotion and strategy is a male emotion. That we can't do. Male and female both have empathy and strategic type thinking, but they are done differently. Each of us is different. So my strategic type thinking or my empathy is going to be different to this lady in the front here. We're both females, but we are both uniquely different. Okay, so you get what I'm saying. We've all got all the emotions, but they're expressed differently. Okay, so let's look at the next slide to help you understand this. Now let's start on the outside. Let me start showing you how God has wired differences in his design. So we all have eyes and ears and a brain and body and all the rest of it. But there's a definite difference in the wiring and in the design of every structure, right from the eyes and the ears and taste and touch, etc., in the male and the female. So this adds to the uniqueness of how we express our empathy, for example, how we see life. So I'm going to stress this over and over and over. First and foremost, you are completely unique, so you're going to do life differently to everyone else. And plus that, you are male and female. You're either male or female. So you're going to have that element added to it as well. So let's have a look at the wiring that how God designed differences in terms of, let's just start with the eyes. Let's start with seeing. Now, I remember when we were building our house, we used to live in South Africa. We've been in the States now for 8 years, and like nearly almost 15, 20 years ago, we built our dream home in South Africa. And I remember when we were building it, I was choosing the color of the wall, and I had all these different colors of various different types of shades of cream, like a creamy color. And I remember putting these out and big decisions and comparing to the carpet, and I'm calling Mac over, come and help me with choosing this color and whatever. And he said, I don't know, they all look the same. And I said, can't you see the difference? And I mean, really, I knew that he couldn't see the difference because I've done the brain research, and I even fell in the trap of getting irritated with him. But anyway, basically, females see more shades of color and see more colors, basically because they have twice as many cone cells in the retina. So at the back of the eye and the retina, you have cone cells which help us to identify color. So basically, God, because of the XX design, there are more cone cells. So we all see color, male and female, but women just see more shades of color, so there's more detail. So what we will see throughout these differences that I'm going to identify, and I'm just going to highlight a few because there's a multiplicity of them. I'm going to identify a few, and what you'll see coming through all of them is that women tend to see from the detail to the big picture, and men tend to see from the big picture to the detail. So empathy in a woman looks at detail to big picture. Empathy in a man is big picture to detail. So both have expressed empathy, but it's done in a slightly different way. And within the male range, there's a whole spectrum, and within the female range, there's a whole spectrum. Why? Because of your uniqueness. So no two people are the same. No two males are the same. No two females are the same. We are unique, standalone designer babes. Okay, so females also have more P cells in the retina, which helps them to be able to see more detail. So, and men also have P cells, but they have less. Men have more M cells, which then help them to, they're much more aware of motion. Women have M cells, but they have less, so they're not as tuned into emotion. So God's done this whole design. I'm giving you some basic stuff. You know, if you think of a baby, a little baby boy will be very interested in the little mobiles that you put over their cribs. You'll find that the little boys love watching all the movement. If you do this, they're going to watch the movement of your hands, whereas the girls are trying to see your eyes for the connection, the communication, okay? So females see more details, men see the big picture, women see the big picture too, but women see detail to big picture, men see big picture to detail. Two beautifully unique, complementary, compatible ways of seeing things. It's almost like God did this. He took our uniqueness and then he kind of split the way we can do life, and it's complementary. So he kind of took him and he kind of split this thing into maleness and femaleness on top of uniqueness, and so that means that we need to come together to get the whole picture, because detail to big picture is not enough. It's not the whole picture, and big picture to detail is not the whole picture. And we see this reflected in the brain. The left side of the brain works from the detail to the big picture. The right side of the brain works from the big picture to the detail. So we can't say that the left brain is logical, mathematical, linear, which is the old teaching and incorrect science. It's not, and then the right side of the brain creative. That's incorrect. Both sides of the brain are doing everything, but the left side is detail to big picture, and the right side at exactly the same time is big picture to detail. So the two sides of the brain come together, and that then gives you the complete picture. It's almost like God has reflected that in nature and in man and woman as well. Very interesting. God's a God of order. He knew what he was doing. So this is where science reveals these things. So men see the big picture. Interesting here, men see better in bright light and have binocular vision. Women see better in the dark and have better peripheral vision. You know, peripheral vision is if you do this with your fingers, I can still see my fingers moving, but I haven't moved my eyes. Whereas it's bigger for a woman, men tend to see it around about here. Little things like that. So what I'm showing you is that we've all got peripheral vision, but we do it differently. And that adds to our uniqueness, and it's adding two sides to the coin to get the complete coin. So it's all for completeness, okay, not for competition. We hear differently. We're going to, if you look up on the slide there, females are more sensitive to sound. I don't know if you find if you're driving in the car and it's your husband's favorite song and he puts this radio up so loud and then you're putting it down and he's putting it up and you're putting it down and he's putting it up, or you're watching something on TV and you've got this thing going on, or your son you get in the car with my son, oh my gosh, I can't even hear myself think. He says, now turn it down, he turns it up, I turn it down. So in other words, there's just these differences. And I'm not saying that women don't like loud music. Of course we do from time to time like loud music, but in general a woman is hearing the music differently. Okay, so women are more sensitive to sound and hear more frequencies. So we can tune in, almost want to have a quieter sound so we can hear all those frequencies. Men literally feel the music, so that booming sound that creates that vibration, because sound basically is moving through the air, it's moving through the particles, and it's a sound wave, it's an actual physical wave. And as it goes through a man, they are using that feeling that's created to actually help them hear. Whereas a woman, we are tuned in to, we also feel it, we go through the same thing, but we tuned in to hear more frequencies at a lower rate, at a lower volume, I should say. Okay, so males listen for specific focused purpose. Let's get away from music and let's talk about just listening. As a male is listening, a male is listening for specific purpose, and it tends to be action oriented, it tends to be compartmentalized type listening. And looking for, almost like when you play tennis and you're scoring a point, back, forth, score a point, something like that. Whereas a woman, it's like when we shop, I mean, it's just, oh, that's nice, oh, that's nice, oh, that's nice. And then you start there and then suddenly you're over there, and both are beautiful. It's wonderful because both come together. If you just have this all over the place on its own, it can be chaotic, whereas just this kind of big picture to detail sort of streamlined vision is on its own is also too clinical. So once again, it's always the 3 C's operating. We complete, not compete. We're compatible. We're exponentially better together. Okay, so women pick up whether they're being being listened to. Women are we so sharp. We know when you're not listening to us very quickly. A man doesn't always pick that up, but a man likes to have acknowledgement of. You often find a man saying, "Did you hear?" And a man, when he is communicating and talking, he likes to have that acknowledgement. Whereas women, we don't need it as obviously. We can see it in people's eyes, body movement, etc. I know there's times when Mac's on his cell phone and he says he can listen to me, but I know he can't because I've done the research, and I know that multitasking is a myth and it causes milkshake in your brain. I've got a whole thing on multitasking in this book, and basically it causes brain damage. So every time Mac says he's listening to me when he's on his cell phone, I said, "You're getting brain damage. Put your cell phone down and listen to me." So, he does it back to me now. So, okay, so it's quite fun. All right, so males listen for a specific focus purpose. We said that they like loud sounds. I've said that too. Let's look at the next slide. We basically, the way we hear each other can be almost like filters that can influence our communication. Men process from the big picture to the detail. I've said that. Women see and hear the detail to the big picture. Okay, so I've said that. Let's look at the next slide. Let's talk a little bit about touch. I'm just touching on a few things. Now, this is very interesting because men and women feel and interpret touch differently. So skin is your largest sense organ, and women have 10 times more, if you look down there at the third point over there, women have 10 times more sense receptors, so they're 10 times more sensitive. So that kind of, I know it sounds weird because it says women respond 6 times more, and on an emotional level, we have 10 times more sense receptors, which makes us, it's sort of a biological thing that happens, but it means that women are 6 times more responsive. So if you touch a woman like this, we're feeling it. You have to press 10 times harder, literally, or it's actually 6 times harder on a man for them to feel the same thing. So we feel a very light touch, a man will feel a harder touch. Okay, so it's just a difference that which is quite a significant difference. So it's always good if you want to get someone's attention. I've learned how to get my son and my husband's attention. I will give them a little, like a little hug that's a little tighter than what I have to give the girls, So the girls, it will be, if I want Mac's attention, I'll touch his hand and press quite firmly, and I'll get his attention, and my son, whereas the girls, I just have to literally do that and touch them and I'll get their attention. So, there's just little things, and they're beautiful. They just make us who we are. They make our differences. So, cutaneous deprivation is an interesting concept because we designed, our skin being our largest sense organ, we actually designed for touch. And you think of God, he talks about, the Bible talks about laying on of hands and how Jesus laid on hands. And part of our whole development is touch. So as a child's growing up, the touch is teaching them a whole lot of things are happening in the brain as a child is touched. So children that grow up with what we call cutaneous deprivation, like in orphanages where they're just placed in their little cots and they're not touched and hugged enough, it makes a huge dent in their emotional development. I talk about that in my Orange series and in a little bit in this book as well in more depth. And I do mention it in here obviously as well in the male-female brain book. So you also get toxic touch, where someone can be abusing touch, where they're hurting you, which is obviously in the toxic zone. But we designed for loving touch. On the subject of touch and hugging, as soon as you are hugging someone, within 10 seconds, now this is obviously male to female, etc. If you hug in a certain way and too close, and you hug for longer than 20 seconds, you basically start activating the sexual response. Okay, so don't have longer than 20-second hugs. Okay, so just bear that in mind. And tell this to the teenagers. I do a lot of teaching with teenagers and with the youth, and just be careful of the length of hugs because your brain is still developing till the age of 18 to 20. So there isn't the same level of what we call myelination and stabilization in the brain yet. So it's easier to kind of get overstimulated too quickly, and we need to teach our students and our children these kind of things. The mind is always more powerful, so that's why it's so important that we lay down foundations of good behavior and correct behavior in our children. And that's why Joshua says, teach them sitting down, standing up, lying down all the time. We are teaching our children all the time how to behave. So when they're in a situation where they could be compromised, if you've laid those through your teachings and you're bringing them up, you've laid those networks down, you pray that they'll pop up in their mind when they're in those situations. And I must say, this book on the male-female is very popular amongst the youth, and I've actually overheard my daughters, we've got 3 daughters and and one son. And I've overheard my kids saying to their friends, listen, when you have sex before marriage, this and this happens, and you read my mom's book. And they were always giving this book out to their friends, which is really cool because I do talk about sex in that book. So it's very interesting for them. So that is, there's some interesting things about sex, which I'll talk about later on. But touch is part of those. And touch is basically very important, and it's very different. We also have, for male and female, we have mirror neurons in our brain, all of us, male and female, and these mirror neurons are across the whole, basically this part of the brain and on the side of the brain. And what we do is we mirror, like a mirror reflects back, we reflect back each other's emotions. So the mirror neurons work very closely with touch. So we are able to pick up on each other's, all the things about a human, God has designed the brain to be able to respond to them. So when I talk about mirror neurons in the brain, it's not the mirror neurons that are allowing us to reflect each other's emotions. It is that we are designed to reflect and tune into each other. And when we tune into each other, we will see activity in the mirror neurons. See, it's that way around. Your brain responds to what your mind is telling it to do. Your mind is over the brain. The mind and the brain are separate. Okay, the world will tell you you have mirror neurons, and if they're not working properly, you can't respond. Now, yes, if mirror neurons aren't working properly, you can see social issues and things like that, but your brain can rewire. So through correct loving, you can teach a person how to actually improve and actually regrow and fix up mirror neurons. So our brain constantly can grow. The renewing of the mind changes the brain. Isn't that amazing? Isn't God good? He's so good. You see science, you see God's grace in science so tremendously. I hope I'm sharing that with you. Let's talk a little bit about nonverbal communication. 50% of communication is nonverbal. So that's body language. So we are reading our body language, which is why I mentioned earlier on about the fact that you can't read each other's thoughts, but you can certainly pick up on each other's attitudes. So we are real living beings, and the science of quantum physics talks about energy, and this is not anything weird. The New Ages talk about energy, but they didn't make energy, God did, and they just stole from God and didn't acknowledge God. So let's give credit where credit is due. So when I talk about energy, I'm not talking about weird stuff. I'm talking about science. Hardcore science is that you're alive and you're living, and your brain does have energy that keeps, as you're thinking now, your brain is burning up energy. We need energy from our food sources that we get, and we use fat and glucose, etc. in our body for energy. As you're thinking, as you're sitting here now, as you're doing life, you are using energy to be able to function. So energy, when you are thinking, your brain is generating energy, and that energy emits an energy. So we pick up on a toxic energy, we can pick up on a healthy energy. It's just basically the wave, the energy wave that is being emitted. It's called a non-physical electromagnetic wave that we generate from our thoughts. So thoughts are real things that occupy mental real estate, which is what I kind of said in the beginning as well. So these are just different parts of the brain that become, I'm not going to go in detail through that, but like, for example, when a woman is reading nonverbal cues, you'll see a lot more activity in her temporal lobe, which is more or less over here, and you'll see more activity in this part of the male brain. So in other words, there's a uniqueness in how the male sees nonverbal communication, and a uniqueness in how the female observes nonverbal communication. But we are both doing nonverbal communication, we're both perceiving it, okay, male and female. It's just done slightly differently, okay? Both men and women are very good at describing nonverbal communication, but women are better at naming and describing what it means. Okay, so women can put words to, like, we'll come out of a meeting, Mac and I sometimes, and I'll say, did you see how X, Y, Z was feeling about whatever it was? And you'll say, how did you know that? And I said, she didn't say anything in the meeting. She didn't say that, or he didn't say that. And I say, no, I could see that by the body, by the way that they were sitting and what they was doing with their eyes and just the body movements, etc., etc. And then he said, oh yeah, I noticed that, but I didn't quite understand exactly, or not understand, I didn't quite know how to verbalize that. So there was a complementary thing that happens as males and females. We complement each other. So that's why it's so important that you have male and female input. Now, people often say to me when they hear this, well, what if I'm not married? Well, you're still in a world with males and females. You still have brothers, aunts, uncles, sisters, friends, colleagues. You're still going to have significant others in your life that are the opposite sex. So it's always a good idea to have opposite sex friends. If you're not married, make sure that you have opposite sex friends. Make sure that you're connecting with an uncle, an aunt, a father, whatever, who can also speak and help you balance out your decision making and your choices and your thoughts in life and the things that you're doing, because it's going to give that completeness to your decision making. Okay, so this is now just an image of the brain, and we're going to have a quick look. We're going to go inside the brain now. So we've seen there's a difference in what we see, in our hearing there's a difference, and I did a bit about the skin. So that's external. Let's go inside the brain and start seeing inside the body and start seeing a few differences in the brain. So what we see, the front part we'll go from the outside of the brain, and then we'll do a few structures inside the brain. So looking on the outside of the brain, what we find is that women have a slightly larger front part of the brain. So where you see the brown, the blue, and the green, that is slightly larger in a woman. And those areas are basically for deep thinking, introspection, decision making, shifting between thoughts, linguistic things, interpersonal communication. The networks in those part of the brain, those parts of the brain are responsible for that kind of stuff. The back part of the brain, where you see the purple, red, and that's kind of greeny color, and the yellow, that deals more with spatial movement, going inside ourselves and thinking inside of ourselves, instinct, gut feel, visual spatial things, and that sort of thing, rhythm, etc. Now, all of us have all those 7 different areas. Okay, we all have them, male and female. How we process information uniquely is how we actually can be described by how we actually use those 7 different pillars of the brain. So I'm not going to teach on that much at all tonight, but basically in this book, The Gift in You, and I also have an online program that also teaches on this, where there's a profile that you can fill in to understand how you uniquely are your perfectly you, which is actually the whole thing I said in the beginning, being made in God's image, in your uniqueness, where your self-esteem and your humility will grow. If you want to understand that more effectively, I have a profile that I've developed years and years ago in research. I used to do it with my patients. It's now in book form and in online, and there you can actually understand more about who you are, how you think. Okay, and if you understand who you are and how you think, as I said, you will understand how you're going wrong. And it's fantastic for understanding. When I do marriage seminars, we always get the partners to fill these in. I always recommend families fill it in on your kids, your bosses at workplaces, so that you can understand that's who that person is. So stop trying to make someone like you, and stop trying to be like someone else. You make a lousy someone else, you make an amazing you. Okay, so this is a very strong tool to help you to be able to be satisfied with who you are. Remember, we live in a world that says be like someone else to be a success, when God says be yourself to be a success. And in trying to be like someone else to be a success, you will make a mess of the real success. So it's very important that you are getting that kind of thing in your relationships with other people. Very important as a parent, as a wife, as a husband, work colleague, etc. So that's what the 7 colors are in the brain. Let's have a look back at the brain again. So we all have all 7 different areas of the brain, male and female. How we use those 7 different areas contributes to our uniqueness that I keep talking about. And then in addition, we have this maleness, femaleness thing. So the front part of the female brain is bigger, and the back part of the male brain is bigger. So there's more circuits in the front part of the female brain. There's more circuits in the back part of the female brain. One of the main outcomes of that, or the main things that we see, that what does that mean in terms of life? Well, men, that whole thing I spoke to you about, that men see from the detail to the big picture. Big picture to detail, sorry. It's because of the more circuits in the back part of their brain. They go from big picture thinking to detail. Women, because of there's more circuits in the front of their brain, they go from detail to big picture. That's one of the reasons. So that's a big picture reason. So then if we go, let's have a look at another slide. Okay, let's have a look at, this is another slide of you and I hanging out of our head when we wake up in the morning. We've got to put our eyes and everything back on our head. This is just a slice through the brain with our 5 senses. So it's another view of the brain just to help you visualize this. So the front part of the brain's bigger in the female, and the back part of the brain's bigger in the male. So this has a lot of implications, because we see these size differences throughout the different structures of the brain, that some parts are bigger in the male, some parts are bigger in the female, and the size has a lot of is one of the main reasons why we are different in our maleness of empathy and our femaleness of empathy. Get my point? Okay, so the size differences are contributing to, to this difference. So God had a lot of fun when he decided to make male and female. He kind of like had this design thing going on where he created this difference. And as we target the struggle to understand each other, so we increase those 3 C's, our completion, our compatibility, and the things that help us to actually function at a higher level. Okay, so let's look at the next slide, which is now going to give us a little bit more detail about intellectualizing. So are men or women more intelligent? Well, as I've already said, and the Bible says it as well, we are equally as intelligent. We just intellectualize differently once again. So the big part of the woman's brain being a bit bigger in the front, women have a 36% bigger front part of the brain, men have a 38% bigger back part of the brain. Men have now, if we go inside the brain, what we will see, and I'm going to actually put the slide back up of that you hanging out of your head, and we're going to go inside the brain, and what we're going to see is I'm going to talk about gray matter and white matter in the brain. Gray matter is on the outside of the brain, so if you look at the brain image there, you'll see green, you'll see like a pinky color, and you'll see like a sort of browny color with little branches in it. So the outer part of the brain is where our memories are stored, okay, and basically it's darker, it's the tops of the trees are literally on the outside of the brain, so we call that gray matter. Then the tree trunks lie towards the inside of the brain, and we call that the white matter. So that is, in terms of brain function, both are vitally important. Neither the gray matter nor the white matter is more important than the other. They perform different roles in response to your mind. So as you are thinking, and as you are learning, and as you're doing life, you are basically using your gray matter and white matter, and your gray matter actually increases as you are going through life, male and female. We increase our gray matter, which are these little branches on top, which we call dendrites. Okay, so we're growing dendrites all the time. So our density of our gray matter is always increasing every time we learn, and we are always learning, and we are always changing our brain. Every time you think, you are changing your brain. Okay, so this is a wonderful thing to know, because that means that we can always make sure we're thinking in alignment with God. One of the most important things I can tell you as a scientist is that you need to set up a constant internal dialogue with the Holy Spirit. Okay, to help you make sure you change your brain in the right direction. Okay, so coming back to relationships, let's look at the next slide, and let's talk a little bit about the gray matter and the white matter in men and women. It all balances out. What they found from research is that men appear, on looking at the structural analysis of brains, to have 6 times more gray matter. The gray matter almost operates like supercomputers, and women have 10 times more of the white matter, and the white matter almost operates like an internet. Like the internet. Now I'm going to say almost, because no human brain could ever be captured by a computer. A computer, no matter how many billions they spend on artificial intelligence, which is called AI, they will never ever be able to build a computer that can do with what the human brain can do, because the computer has to be built by a human brain. And one of the leading experts who started out 30 years, who runs the biggest brain project in the world, who actually is also a South African, went to the same university as I did, basically started out 30 years ago saying that he's going to basically build artificial brains. He's going to build artificial intelligence. He raised billions of dollars. He has one of the biggest brain projects. He has the top scientists in the world. He has Nobel Prize winners working for him, and 30 years later, he's been we've learned, I have to tell you, so much from his research, but he has a totally different take. He now says the following, which is different to what he said 30 years ago. He said that we would never, in our entire lifetime, in thousands of years, in probably more than 1,000 years, ever be able to capture the power of the human brain in a computer. And that is because of our uniqueness, and because of our maleness and our femaleness, and because the brain is constantly changing. He spent 30 years basically mapping out, it took him 30 years to basically map out one circuit in a little mouse brain, maybe thinking about eating that cheese. Okay, so, and he said that if you have a look at the slides and the work and the mathematics, and we've learned a lot about how the brain goings on from his research and from neuroscientific research, but what he says is that one single little mouse brain, one circuit, that single mouse circuit is listen to this, a veritable universe. So if one circuit in a mouse brain is a veritable universe, how are the circuits in the human brain? Okay, infinite, endless, quantum in their nature. Okay, we are made in the image of an outstandingly brilliant God. We need to start seeing ourselves in that light. And having said that, that means that we have no excuse for bad relationships, do we? Okay, you see, I caught you there. So you agreed with me. Now you agree with me that we can do this thing. We can change our brain. So let's have another look at what this big front part, back, smaller, bigger back part in the male, bigger front part in the female in terms of the brain. Let's look at the fact that what does this mean in terms of 6 times more gray matter in the male, 10 times more white matter. What does this mean in terms of life? Well, he starts with the big picture. Because of the bigger back part of the brain, because of the more of these clusters of these little gray matter, the way they cluster together, because of her more 10 times more white matter, etc., because of various other things, this produces this kind of thing where a man will start with a big picture, internally talk, visualize the details, and speak the language of action. So you've heard of cave time. There's books written on it. There's plays been made about it. We make jokes sometimes about he's in his cave time. And girls, those of you that are married, and anyway, those of you not, you've seen your father or brothers or uncles or work colleagues go into these cave times where they seem to zone out. The guys seem to zone out. And they're on their iPhone, their computer, the TV, the newspaper, the whatever, and you talk to them and you say, what do you want for dinner, or you want to just say something about the day, and they'll say, what, I don't know, I'm busy. And they kind of zoned out. They're actually jumping from one thing to the next all over the place, and it normally happens around about between 4 and 7 in the evening, which is quite interesting. So in other words, that what we are doing, male and female, during the course of the day is that we are building thoughts all during the day, and in the early evening we are settling down, we are kind of putting those thoughts to bed, and then so that we can actually go to sleep. So our minds need to wind down. So we have a wind down phase somewhere between 4 and 7. I mean, that's a broad, it could be between 5 and 8. It's sort of around about the early evening time. And men tend to wind down by going into their cave time and zoning out and doing these kind of almost physical things that seem mindless, swapping, jumping channels and that sort of thing. But it's a way that they're actually just doing an external thing that is enabling them to process internally. And that's because of the bigger back part of the brain, and the 6 times more gray matter that we see. It produces that kind of functioning. So God had a lot of fun in that design. Now the women are the opposite, where we've got more circuits towards the front of the brain, so more circuits towards talking, more circuits towards emotional details, etc., etc. So we wind down by talking, and they wind down by going kind of quiet and into their own zone. So most arguments will start between around about 4 and 7 in the evening. So moms, if your son comes home from school or university and you say to him, how was your day? And he grunts, fine, and you don't get much more than a fine out of him, don't get mad. Let him cool down, and later on go for a walk. I've learned if I want to get anything out of my kids or hear what's going on, I go for a walk. When a man moves, he expresses himself much more easily. Okay, so when he's gone through cave time and you go for a walk, that is a great time. In fact, my son when we go for walks, all Mac and Jeffrey do all the talking, and us girls do the listening with a smile on our face. So because that's their time for talking, and we communicate as a family like that. It's not totally like that, but basically when a man moves, it does help him to express, and also not to try and force a man to tell you what's going on at that time in that time when he's trying to process is very frustrating, because God has designed him to have that cave time. So we need to respect that. Now you're thinking, okay, well, he's got to have his quiet time. What about me? I need to talk. Well, what you need to do is talk to the dog, the cat, your friend, your mom, whatever. Find someone to talk to. There's always someone that will listen. I mean, we have these cute little Shih Tzus, and they just love it when we stroke them and talk to them, or your daughters, or your phone, your girlfriend, or whatever. Find someone, and then by the time sort of 7, 8 o'clock comes, you've talked all your way through this whole meandering thing, and you've kind of got some order in your thoughts, hopefully, and he's kind of processed and whatever, and you both are going to be more receptive to a discussion. So having heated discussions, or discussing hot topics, when you're both tired and you're both trying to sort your thoughts out, you're just going to go garbly all over the place, girls, and the guys are just going to react wrongly. They're going to pull away and whatever. I don't have to spell it out more. You get the point. So give him his cave time. So I was teaching this in a church back in South Africa many years ago, and the pastor, he had 4 daughters and a wife, so he really felt like he never had any. They even had girl dogs and cats. He really felt that there was a bit too much female stuff the female side in his house, and he never got a chance for cave time because there's always one of his daughters or the females in his life that needed some of his attention. So what they did was, he was a very great, they lived by the sea, and he loved to do shark cage diving. He used to go shark diving in shark cages, and which is advisable, do it in a shark cage. And so they bought him a shark cage, put it in his office, put this beautiful chair inside the shark cave, and a little like desk thing there. So when he wanted cave time, he went in his shark cage. Okay, so that was extreme. When they walked in his office, Dad or Honey, and he was in his shark cage, they closed the door and they went out. So you don't have to be that extreme, but it is a good idea to work out a plan so that you can have, you can actually work out your best way of thinking. Okay, so let's have a look a little bit about talking and communication. This is always interesting because immediately, if I ask you all, do men and women talk, do women talk more than men? What's your answer going to be? Okay, so you're wrong. Okay, science shows we talk the same, more or less the same amount of words in a day, but we use our words differently. So, do you remember learning the states of matter, solid, liquid, and gas? Do you remember that? Okay, solid is ice, and then it becomes liquid when you heat it, and then you heat it more and it becomes gas. You all remember that, please, okay? So, now, men talk like ice cubes, women talk like the gas. Same amount of words, but men, it's dense pockets. It's dense like little ice blocks. And they're not icy. I'm just giving you that as an analogy. It's very concentrated. It's very dense. Ice is very dense compared to gas. Gas is all over the place. So the choice of words that they make, the way that the selection of times when they communicate. So you'll find men will use up most of their words during the course of a working day and in a working environment. And especially in a social environment, very often men will, if there's men and women, men will very often dominate the conversation. Not always. I'm talking, all of these are obviously generalizations because our uniqueness comes through. But even if you have a man and a woman, and people will say sometimes to me that, no, my husband definitely talks gaseous and I talk ice blocks. And I'll say, well, it may feel like that, but if you actually analyze what they're doing, and I've done this in counseling, in my practice, and actually they are talking in ice blocks and they are talking in gas, if you know what I mean, and they are, but it's just done differently. It feels like that. So he's maybe only got a few little ice blocks in between. So if you imagine there's a few ice blocks there with gaps in between, whereas hers is a very, like a dense burst of steam and another quietness and then a dense burst of steam. Are you getting the analogy I'm trying to paint? And some of it is just steam all the time, and some of it is just one little ice block. It's different because we're unique, but you still talk in ice blocks and gas. Okay, so it's because of the nature of how you've been designed. So we talk more or less the same amount of words, and very often what happens is men will their words are more dense, as I said, their choice of words and the time periods that they use those words. So by the end of the day, a man has generally kind of run out of ice blocks. He's only got a few left, but we kind of spread ours because steam kind of spreads more. So that's why very often it feels like a woman is talking more in the evening than a man, and that's why often we get this. And just the nature of gas versus ice blocks, it seems like it's all over the place. Just the nature of the kind of words that we use. For example, and this is culturally and global research. In other words, across culture and global, the research that I present, okay, in my book. And it's not just limited to a culture. So across cultures and globally, men talk, the ice block kind of language is facts, actions, and results. So they think about a lot of the permutations internally, and they speak facts, actions, results. Those are the ice blocks, okay? Men are designed to separate words, emotions, and memory. Just how God's designed the structures in the brain, they separate that out. So it's like very compartmentalized, very organized. Women, we blend words, emotions, and memory, okay? Women speak the language of emotions laden with memory and much more all over the place. And let me look at the next slide. Let me show you. His brain is built to see conversation as a means to an end. Women, we just talk because we just enjoy it. There is no end. Okay, that gas thing, it just carries on, and then carries on a few drops of gas, and the next morning you wake up and you just carry on where you stopped off, kind of thing. And I mean, how many times, girls, have you talking away and your husband snoring? That's happened to me. I'm talking away because I put my head on the pillow and suddenly I got to talk about the day. I get this like, whoops, I wake up and I've got a little bit of steam left. I've got to finish it. So, and then he's snoring away, but anyway, he still kind of listens. So I'll poke him awake and say, hey, you've got to listen to this. It's very important. And then I forgot what I was going to tell him or something. But anyway, it got rid of the steam. So Let's have a look at the next slide. He internal talks and may go silent, may move away. So when a man receives something that he's got to deal with, we will respond immediately with a lot of words. A man generally will actually go quiet. He's going inside himself to process, and he may have to physically move himself away from you or the conversation or something, just to be able to start moving around, just to process, and then he'll speak. We'll immediately speak, and that also causes arguments, because you could have an issue that's happening in your family, and he seems to like, don't you get this? Because he's not responding. So you say that kind of thing. We're talking there, we got our gas going, and he's actually processing to speak the ice block. So if we understand he needs the time, he's processing. If we understand she is gassing, whatever, it's normal, it's good stuff. She's going to give you detail. Girls, guys, we're going to give you the detail that you're going to miss, because we detail to big picture, and you balance us with your big picture to detail. But if you're just going to go big picture and just going to stick with the ice block without letting the ice block melt, you are going to be very clinical, harsh, and almost aggressive in your communication. Whereas women, if you just get your gas going and you don't get some kind of a handle on putting it back in the kettle, or the teapot, or whatever you call it here, kettle, that thing that you switch in the wall and boil water in, okay, it's called a kettle, okay. If you don't control that, it can actually go all over the place and cause confusion, okay? So males, and then I've said this already, basically talking creates confidence in a woman, and if a man understands this, they can accept it. Whereas if you just talk endlessly and they don't understand it, or we haven't taught our daughters and sons about the fact that it's okay for a woman to talk, then it's going to create a stress in a woman if she isn't allowed to talk. But at the same time, we have to balance it, because we can talk ourselves into a hole. And this is why I love the fact that God's given us male and female, because our husbands can, hey, listen, maybe you should just calm down on that. Maybe see it from this angle or whatever, to help us bring the steam under control. And we can actually see the ice blocks, and we can say, hey, you need a bit of steam in there. You need a little bit of detail. We add a bit of color. So we're very complementary once again. Remember, we're completing each other. We're not competing. Okay, so let's have a look at another slide. Let's a little bit more about talking. She discusses with detail out loud to a conclusion. Okay, this is a funny one, because we'll talk out loud. We are thinking out loud. We are talking with detail. Men are talking internally. So then man assumes they're done. Okay, so you have this whole conversation, and then you have this whole conclusion, and then you start all over again. And he said, but aren't we done? I thought we'd already come. No, I still need to talk. I still need to say this. And then you talk and talk and talk, and then 2 hours later you come back to the first conclusion. He said, didn't we have that first? Well, this is a process the women are going through externally, you going through it internally. You see, if the man then says, "What, we've already said this, and why are you saying it again?" It's going to be a fight. If the woman says, "Listen to me, you're not giving me a chance," and whatever, or you can just say, "Okay, keep talking." And you can pretend to listen, but we'll pick it up, so don't think you can kid us. But it ended at some point, and it tolerated it, and then tolerate the fact that he also needs some sort of end point. Can you see this as give? This is 100% give. If you go into a relationship giving 50 and expecting 50 back, you're not going to get anything back. But if you go into a relationship, you're always going to be frustrated. But if you go into a relationship giving 100% and expecting nothing, guess what you're going to get back? 100%. That's how and that's this let me understand, let me not try and make you like me. And there's still conversations that Mac and I have now, where sometimes both of us will slip back into bad habits, and we'll both say to each other, hey, hang on, I'm sorry, because I've actually tried to make you like me. What do you mean? And it's really healthy. So stop yourself, apologize, and catch yourself in those situations. Develop be very mindful in your conversations, males and females. We need to be mindful. Our brain, the front part of our brain, is designed that we can stand outside of ourselves and observe our own thinking. So we are able to mindfully observe what is going on in our lives. So use this skill. It requires a discipline, because if you just become reactive and chaotic in your thought life, and you don't have a disciplined thought life, you won't take advantage of this wonderful skill that God has built into our minds, which is reflected in the brain structures. And that is, as you're in a conversation, be aware, how are you saying what you're saying? What is your facial expression? What is your nonverbal communication? What is he or she actually saying? Stop a moment. Ask them, is this what you mean? Before you freak out and say, and make an assumption. Do you see what I'm saying? Mindful conversations. This morning we spoke about being conscious consumerism when we purchase food. Be mindful. Research shows that when we are mindfully aware of what we are purchasing or purchasing things change. When research shows that when we are mindfully aware of what I've just described, how we are functioning, we change the way that we think. Mindful awareness allows us to actually say, hey, Holy Spirit, help me here. What is he or she trying to say? What is my next decision? Which comes back to what I said earlier on. The most important thing that we need to do in our life is develop an ongoing dialogue with the Holy Spirit in every aspect. And you are designed to do that. Your brain is designed to do that. Okay, so it's one of the great benefits of leading a disciplined, renewed thought life. Okay, so let's have a look at just a little bit more, couple more things. Here's some examples of this communication thing difference in terms of how does it play out in daily life. Women's robust circuits, if you have a look up there, women's robust circuits in the front part of their brain enable them to determine the impact of their words and behaviors, and there should be an extra word there, quicker than in a male. A man can also determine the impact of his words and his behaviors, but it's just done in a different way. It doesn't see as much detail as the woman, and this is why it's so important that we balance each other. A woman can read too much into a situation, and a man can read too little into a situation, but together you can get the right reading. Okay? You'll get the correct reading. This is a funny one. Greeting cards. Watch a man buy a greeting card. When they're opening them, they'll look for the one with the most words that express what they're saying. Whereas women they normally buy with more space so we can write more. Things like that. He uses the ice block type speaking, very direct words bouncing back and forth to score a point. Direct words, if you look at the bottom, there are things like will you, when will you, none, always, never, absolutely. Those are the kind of ice block words a man uses. They can incense a woman. When a man says, like if Max says to me, you never this, it drives me crazy, because for a woman, a word like that is, well, there's just no hope. I may as well not even try. If you think I'm never going to, you see, it's very strong. So girls, we don't have to react. I know when Max says never, he doesn't mean you're never going to change. He's actually using an ice block word, but he's now more aware it upsets me, and he's also more aware, I'm more aware that if I get too waffly, maybe, kind of, if I'm not too focused, it can also frustrate him. So girls do listen to conversation between two girls versus between two guys. It's hilariously different. It really is. And I mean, sometimes when we get together with two of our best friends, Mac and Matt will be having a conversation, myself and Laurie, and sometimes the guys will stop talking and they'll watch us and they'll say, what are you talking about? You haven't finished one sentence. But we know exactly what we were talking about, okay? So we just look at them and smile and say, wouldn't you just love to know what we were talking about? Okay, so here's an interesting one. Anger, men fire up quicker but cool down slower. Women take longer to get mad but take longer to cool down. And that is actually because inside of our brain we have a circuit that goes from the internal parts of our brain. It's basically from, I'm just going to talk about three structures that are involved in the anger circuit. It goes from basically you're going to get it. Matt, can you just bring the image back up for me of the inside of the brain? Okay, we're going to see an image of us hanging out of our head again. Okay, so we have a circuit that basically runs from the area that's just above your eyes. If you go where your eyes on, you go back towards that part of the brain just below the green kind of curve thing. Okay, that's the basal forebrain. Between that and then there's a structure in the middle of the brain there that if you have a look at it, it kind of is an orange structure. It's on top of a blue structure, and then basically you have your heart, okay, down the bottom there. So you have this triangle from the structure called the amygdala, which is like a perceptual library. So our perceptions, when we're forming a perception, you're basically going to have high activity in your amygdala. Remember, your brain responds to your mind. So the amygdala doesn't produce perceptions. Your mind does the perceiving, and your amygdala responds. Okay, so the amygdala holds your perceptions. Then you have the front part of your brain, which is very active when you are in decision making and introspection, etc. And then your heart has a little mini brain in it that is like a cognitive evaluator. So it's kind of a checking station to help kind of evaluate whether things are right or wrong. So it's almost like the heart brain brain helps us to determine, are we stepping in this zone so we'll have peace, or are we stepping into this zone where we'll feel a bit of unease? So God's built a little checking station into our biology to help us be aware when we're making choices. So the anger circuit is actually misnamed because when we think of anger, we think of bad things. It's more like, I would prefer to call it a reaction circuit, and it's a basic circuit in the brain that enables us to respond to situations. Now, we know that Jesus got angry in the temple, and he was justifiably angry because it was incorrect what was happening. So when you see trafficking, human trafficking, or you see bad things happening or injustice, we have that kind of good anger. But then you have toxic anger, which is just when you're getting plain mad and you're being nasty, etc., etc. So what we don't have wiring for that stuff. We don't have any wiring in our brain for anything bad. We only have wiring for good stuff. So the anger circuit is a reaction circuit that enables us to respond correctly and quickly with a discerning kind of attitude, discernment in a situation. So as we go through life and we build up experience in terms of our memories, then as something happens, those memories move from the non-conscious to the conscious, and our amygdala kicks in when we start discerning. And the more we pray in tongues, the more the amygdala actually responds and actually grows literally internally. So tongues, praying in the Spirit, actually increases our discernment, which is wonderful to know, which is just one of the benefits of praying in tongues. But as we also listen more to the Holy Spirit, so we develop that. Okay, so this circuit that runs from our choosing and thinking to this perceptual part down to this checking station is a perfect triangle in a man, and it's a quick, fast, perfect triangle, and he basically perceives situations very quickly. A practical example, whenever you walk into a room and there's whatever, watch the men. They tend to look where the exits and entries are and who's here, and kind of like the big picture sort of thing. Women, we're noticing who's just had an argument, what that person's wearing, how their emotions are, etc., etc. So we kind of look at different things, and that's because of the different sizes of the amygdala. The amygdala in the man's slightly bigger than in a woman. Okay, so when you get into an argument, if you agree to argue in a healthy way and you agree to argue in a way that's positive, because we need to learn how to agree to disagree and have a healthy debate without freaking out and having a fight. It's very good to learn from each other. So sometimes it may get heated, but you should be able to have a healthy debate without being nasty or sarcastic or stepping into the toxic zone. So you may even be having a heated discussion about some political view or about something that's happening, and it may be slightly different, but you are communicating. So then that circuit is firing quite quickly in the man, and then in the woman we have an extra top part of our circuit actually loops up around. Let's have that back again. Can you see the green, the pink part above the green? So we don't have a direct line from the amygdala to the orbital frontal cortex. We have a loop. It loops around the pink part above the green part, and that's called the anterior central gyrus, which is very involved in shifting. When you shift between thoughts and you are physically feeling emotional situations, that becomes very active. So the point here is a man has a perfect triangle, so he moves through these things fast, and a woman has this extra loop, so she brings in more detail to the perception. That's when things are operating in this zone. When things go wrong and the anger gets out of hand and becomes ugly, then what happens is a man has got a short fuse. He's going to get angry quicker. It's very strongly linked to the physical part, so he may throw something, may move fast, may throw his arms around, so there's some kind of a physical expression of the anger, but he'll cool down quickly. Women will take longer trying to reason with the man because of that extra loop, but then once she does get mad, she takes much longer to cool down. When we have an argument and we move from positive stress, when we're arguing well, we're in positive stress, which is good for you, where everything is functioning like it should, then everything will function and the circuits will operate correctly. But when we move into toxic stress, where we're getting mad and angry, then what we do is we move into stage 2 and 3 of stress. So instead of cortisol flowing correctly, it now flows in the incorrect amounts. So instead of your blood vessels dilating around your heart, which they'll do in this situation, increasing oxygen and blood flow to your brain and body, if you're in toxic stress, toxic anger, you get the blood vessels constrict, you have less blood flowing to your body and your brain, and therefore you are are not thinking clearly, there's fogginess, you're going to be reactive, you're in toxic zone, so then you have all your neurochemical responses start going out. In fact, 1,400 different neurochemical responses happen when you're in stress. Stress is very good for you, positive stress, okay? It helps you to focus and be alert, but when you're in toxic stress, what was good goes wrong, and if you have these 1,400 different chemicals flowing chaotically, and that means you have the wrong amounts of cortisol. Something about the design of a man, and I have to ask God this because no one has been able to explain this to me yet in science. When a man, because of his triangle, that's what I can only seems to be the science points to it in this perfect triangle, he cools down quicker and the cortisol subsides. You see, cortisol will normalize once you calm down. Okay, now a woman taking longer to calm down means her cortisol flows for longer. Now cortisol, when it flows in wrong quantities, will also stimulate too much adrenaline and basically cause your sympathetic and your parasympathetic nervous system to not work like they should. And that's when you start feeling pain physically in your heart, where you start feeling those flu symptoms, where you start feeling like a male and female, where you don't feel so good. So it's not a good idea to stay in that state because it's very, very destructive to your brain and your body. And your body can heal, but it's not a good state to be in, okay? Because eventually that can cause breakdown and adrenal burnout and all kinds of illnesses, and et cetera, et cetera. So it's not a good state to be in. So a man needs to help a woman calm down. If you see a woman's taking a long time to calm down, it is a very good idea to calm her down. So what you do, and John was laughing on the way in when you were talking here because he said that Jackie's always right, which is true. We are always right, okay? So all you have to do is tell us, even if we were wrong, tell us, yes, you're right. It's okay. I'm sorry. Bring us beautiful roses that are fair trade, and bring us organic chocolate that is healthy, sustainable, local, you know, from this morning's conversation. And tell us that we're totally right, and we'll forgive you and immerse us in love, and then we'll admit we were wrong. If we were wrong. Okay, so in other words, that's just some interesting facts about how our anger circuit can go wrong. See, God gives us everything that works for the good, and I'm going to jump down because I've been speaking for way too long now, and you need to get home. Let me show you talk about sex. That's much more fun, isn't it? Okay. Sex is good for you if you're married. It's not good for you if you're not married, because if you're not because of the spirit, soul, body nature of how we function as integrated beings, when we have sex outside of marriage, and this is what secular research has shown, it creates confusion in the brain, and because what happens when you have sex, you are actually exchanging bodily fluids, and you are literally, because of the spirit, soul, body connection, you are building that other person in your head. So it's deep unto deep. It is a really powerful, not just a physical thing, there's a lot else going on. So you're building that person with all their DNA, etc., inside your head. So multiple partners, multiple confusion. Having said that, remember our brain is neuroplastic, so we can confess, we can eliminate, we can literally over a period of 63 days, 3 cycles of 21, we can stop having multiple partners, and we can wind those partners out of our head. But that's a choice of our mind. Okay, so I tell it, this is in my book as well. So in other words, sex is a very real spirit, soul, body thing. So we need to recognize that. And as I mentioned already, if you hug for longer than 20 seconds, you start changing things. And in Genesis 22:22, you should be laughing there. None of you read it yet. The Lord God fashioned into a woman the rib which he had taken from man, and brought her to the man. And they felt the special euphoria that only comes from a rush of phenylalanine, I can't say that word, and dopamine, followed by the desire to bond and the goofy feelings caused by oxytocin and dopamine. Okay, that is the message version that doesn't actually exist. Okay, no, that's just me playing around with words, but basically that really does, God has designed sex as a very positive thing. In a marriage relationship, you're going to just love this. It increases neuroplasticity, it increases intelligence, it increases longevity, it is incredibly good for focus and alertness, but it's meant to be in the right place, okay? So it's meant to be, in other words, within a marriage protected relationship because of the nature of the commitment of the actual act of sex. So basically we are designed to respond to love. We are wired for love. We are addicted to love. Remember this morning I said the top addiction is love. It's the most impossible thing to quit. Who would want to quit love anyway? And basically we are expressing our love through the sexual act, through that bonding. So because of the deep spiritual, emotional, and intellectual, the brain is designed to respond to love. Yes, it's up there. Because of the deep spiritual, emotional, and intellectual, which is the soul, and electrochemical, which is the body connection, we become entangled. I mentioned the law of entanglement earlier on, which is the law of relationship. So because of this, we can build each other up and we can tear each other down. Okay, so this is why a look on your husband's face can destroy your day. A look on your wife's face can destroy your day. A word said in a certain way will rip his heart out, and a word said in a certain way will crush her for the day. We need to be very careful. They did a study, and I'm going to end with this and one more thing. They did a very interesting study called the blister study, where they got couples that came into a laboratory. They were each put in their own little cubicle. Just before going into their cubicle, they put a little blister on their hand. It didn't hurt them, and it was a kind of blister that would heal within 21 days. You see, your body works on cycles of healing over periods of 21 days, and that's also the science of detoxing the brain, which I teach in this book over here, the 21-day detox. So when we talk about eliminating toxic thoughts, and talk about eliminating whether it's thoughts in your relationship, whether it's bad food patterns, whether it is just toxic issues in your life, you have to consciously go through cycles, 3 cycles of 21 days. The first cycle breaks the toxic thought down, builds the healthy replacement thought, and the next 2 cycles of 21 days stabilize and automatize, turning the new healthy way of thinking into a part of your belief system. So you get rid of, so you can remember how you were, as Paul says, once I was, but now I am. That takes work. Most people give up after 4 days, okay? And then they whine and moan about why they haven't changed. You haven't run your race. Okay, you got to push through. That's why I love science. It takes a minimum of 63 days. Same thing with healing in the body. So that kind of blister that they put onto the hands of these people was a blister that would heal more or less in 21 days. So sometimes you have a wound that will take more than 1 cycle of 21 days, and that's normal, but every 21 days you'll see major progress in healing in wounds in your body, okay, and on your body. So these couples were then told that they had to have a discussion about something that they disagreed about, and there were no other rules. They didn't give them any rules. They just said, you are going to discuss something that you disagree on, and they were then put in their little cubicles and they started talking. Some were very polite, some, as the time went on, they kind of relaxed into old patterns of communication because it was quite contentious, the subjects that they were asked to speak about, and some agreed to disagree nicely, and some argued quite heatedly, but it was decent. Some were, it was getting pretty ugly, and some were just downright awful. Okay, after 3 weeks, they sent them away, and they came back. After 3 weeks, they wanted to see the physical healing of the blister. Well, those that argued in this kind of zone, that agreed to disagree, their blisters were gone. They were healed. Okay, these ones, their blisters ranged from, depending on how acid the arguments were, from a sort of 30% healing to some of them hadn't even healed. They still had a 60% to go. They'd only healed between 30 and 40%. So that means, now this is a controlled laboratory experiment. This means that your physical healing is diminished by up to 60% when you argue incorrectly. That's powerful. And that's in a controlled experiment. What is the constant acid in relationships doing, not just to husband and wife, but to mother and son and daughter, father to son and daughter? What is the impact of a husband and wife fighting unfairly and not ending things? And what is it doing to children? We are causing trauma in our lives that is going to impact how we do relationships in the future. So that's an experiment that shares that. So that's pretty morbid. So let me share something a little bit, but it's very strong, very powerful. I hope you will remember that, the power of your choice of your thoughts, which will produce your words, because thoughts precede words and actions. As a man thinks in his heart, so is he. There's more than 300 scriptures in the word that show that thoughts precede actions. So everything you say and do didn't just pop out of your head as a random event. That little snappy remark you made to your husband didn't just snap out of your head. You spent time, ladies, building that into your head over 21 times 3 days. You had it well established, and especially if you constantly, and this goes for the guys too, not just the girls and guys, if you're constantly responding in the same way in situations, it means that you have not eliminated this from your heads. It's time to stop, take stock, and detox your brain so that you can improve your relationships. So one of the things in sex is when we kiss, we basically exchange different types of hormones, and men have 100 times more testosterone than women. and they also have more vasopressin, which is another hormone that helps you to have a focus and a laser-like vision, also more in a male than in a female. So when you are kissing, you are actually, the testosterone is passing, the extra testosterone is passing from the male to the female, as well as the vasopressin, and that is part of stimulating the sexual response. So I'm telling this and teaching this and all the different things in a marriage seminar, in a church, once again in South Africa. Interesting that those things are happening there. And the pastor fell off the chair laughing. He laughed and laughed. We had to stop the service. He laughed so hard he fell off his chair. So we obviously wanted to know why he was laughing. I mean, I was talking quite seriously, and this is quite interesting stuff. And I'm thinking, why is he laughing at me? Anyway, I didn't mind. Anyway, so then we said, okay, Pastor, share. Why are you laughing? So he gets back up on his chair, turns to his wife and says, that's how I got you. And she says, how? She said, I spat in your Coke. So she turned around to him and said, gross, but it worked. And I turned around to him and said, how can you drink Coke? On that note, God bless you all. Hope to see you again. Thank you for being such an amazing, amazing crowd listening for so long. God bless you.
Isn't it great to have, may I say it this way, first of all, they're a husband and wife, but a scientist that loves the Lord. Glory to God. And this is the scientist partner right here.
Of the experiment.
So guys, if you won't mind closing out this with a prayer, it would be awesome.
Thank you.
Let's bow our heads and come before the Lord. Lord Jesus Christ, we assemble here in love, bonded in love, to love and serve you. We ask you to give us divine wisdom this week, wisdom from above, which is pure, peaceful, full of good works, without partiality or hypocrisy, as we deal with relationships, either with our spouses or with our fathers and mothers and sons and daughters and co-workers at work. Help us to be quick to listen and slow to speak the word in season, to remember to ask you, Holy Spirit, every time to guide us and lead us so that we may speak loving words, as you so eloquently outlined them, the Apostle Paul in Corinthians 13. Love never fails. Let us never forget that. Let us walk in the divine love. Thank you, Lord God, that you made us in your image. Thank you also that you made us male and female. Thank you also that through science and through your word we can start understanding the differences. But above all, we want your love to reflect through us, the love that you have, that it never fails, the love that is always forgiving, the love that is always new every morning. Your mercies are new every morning, and may we have mercy towards each other in our conversations. And more importantly, may we have mercy towards one another and love in our thoughts. We want to ask you to help us to think good thoughts about the different people in our lives, good thoughts, and help us to remember to pray for them rather to want to give the word that is maybe going to tear them down and so on. So let us start with that premise, Lord God, because when we come to you, you forgive us from all sins. Help us to be forgiving of all the things that have happened in a marriage and relationships. Help us to start afresh. Your mercies are new every morning. And may we start our marriages and our relationships with new mercies every morning. We pray this, Lord God, and we stand in faith and we receive it and we see with the eyes of faith that it'll be so. And our amen that is going to resound right now is going to reach and touch you in the throne room of grace, seated at the right hand of the Father on the mercy seat. Yes, we come before you, Lord God, before you, Lord Jesus, before you, Father God, before you, Holy Spirit. We ask you in this time of need to give us grace and mercy. Let us receive it by faith and shout in one big accord today. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, guys. We love you very much. Thank you for being here. And you're welcome. And to the congregation, we love you all. God bless you. And we'll see you Wednesday night, Friday night, or next Sunday for sure. And make sure that you go and visit their table. God bless you, everyone. Thanks for coming. Have a great week. Remember, this is the great year.